No way.
Yeah. Crystal, can I read something quickly? It's on these themes before you maybe want to jump in. May I, Ra? So it's called something that I wrote. It's called Pass for White. I look different in a family from charcoal black to bread crust brown, sallow yellow, and off-white cream. I could pass for white. I talk different. I didn't talk colored. I twanged. Words spilled out, careful and clipped, stripped of blackness and of home. That accent helped me navigate a path away from the stench of the oil refinery that made grannies sick and left children with permanent colds. That twang gave me safe passage past the gangsters, shoring up their despair and sagging jeans with knives and needles. But a twang doesn't cover all your holes. You can talk like them, move in their circles, buy their homes, drive their cars, but you still leave your family, coughing against pollution, dodging gangsters, running out of hankies to wipe the kids' snotty noses.
You have captured Wentworth perfectly. Mm. And yet, in spite of all of that, there was still the sense of community, in spite of all that adversity. And I don't know, I hope I'm not a Pollyanna, but for me, that is my lived experience. And I know that for as many people that endured apartheid, that have endured the oppression then and now, because let's not say that as colored people, our people don't continue to be oppressed. We do. We are still marginalized in the workplace. I know that because I worked in corporate all my life. You are marginalized. And in spite of all of that, this is still who I am. And I think I mentioned it in the first episode, is what does it matter now? That in spite of all these adversities, that in spite of every thing that I faced in my life, whether it's personal, whether it's as a race, person of a specific race, as a person of a specific gender, all of those, a person of a specific religion even. What does it matter if I have been able for the major part of my life to live my life as somebody that I respect? So I don't know, for me, my identity is largely, and Annie, you used to say this about me a lot of the time, that I have a serious internal locus of control. And my kids used to ask Annie, what are these grasshoppers you're talking about, Annie? But I think I was taught that from the age of 12. My dad took us to Science of Mind classes, Kevin and I, when we were 12 and 13 years old. And we were taught that, who I think I am is more important than what other people say, who they say I am. So even I was born 13 days after this country became a republic. So I was born in apartheid when the new laws were coming, being enacted, more and more and more repressive rules were coming in. So I have lived through the worst part of apartheid and seeing at the age of 30 odd the changeover into, okay, now we can vote for our dispensation. And now 30 years later, having moved on to, is that really what we voted for? So I've seen that whole spectrum of life. Okay, now you know how old I am, right? But that's okay too. So Heidi, what you've said about Wentworth and the fact that so many of our people have died of the cancers from inhaling those noxious gases, not only from the oil refinery, but from Jacobs and all of those, that industrial area. And In, I think at one stage they said there was, in 1 square mile, 1 million people squashed into Wentworth. I still choose to remember the good that Wentworth gave me. I witnessed my first murder at the age of 12. The guy was not even 100 meters away from me. He ran past me, I stood back and was like, what is going on here? And the guy that was chasing him caught him and stabbed him in his neck. So I've seen all of those things. But I still choose to not let those learned experiences be who I am. If I want to call it like that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, because I think it's both. I mean, I don't think we can't divorce Wentworth from us. It's who we are. It's made us who we are. So we live with the smell of the oil refinery and the images of that murder. And it teaches us some really important things about resilience and about hope and about community. So it's all of those things. So if I always say, when I was a teenager and growing up, I was so ashamed to be from Wentworth and so ashamed to be poor and so ashamed to have a drunk father. And when you get a little older, you realize all of those things shape who you are. So very much that physical place and space of Wentworth has shaped many of who we are. And the many things we've been able to achieve and do is because of that adversity, because of that struggle. So it's not either or, both of those things. I think all of those things rest in us. And I think the question you posed at the beginning there was about, what does it mean now? Like in the Rainbow Nation, does anybody actually care about this little group of people called coloureds who might still identify as coloured? Some people are saying it was a kind of fabricated identity created by the apartheid regime. Nobody really cares about it. Actually, just get over yourself. And, in the Rainbow Nation, there is no place for this group. And I disagree. I think even though it may have been fabricated and created under this apartheid regime, something happened. You put people together, you forcibly removed them in a place. They created community, they created culture, and they created a sense of identity. And it matters. It matters to a lot of people in terms of who they are and how they see themselves. And I think I'm interested in what does it mean for people like you, Ra, who are in some ways displaced from that physical location. So whether that's the immediate environment of Wentworth and the bigger context of South Africa, where race is shaped in a very particular way. And I don't think we've done enough work to unpack that in South Africa. But I wonder what that means when you then are moved, for you as well, Annie, to another place. What do you do with that? Where does that go? How does it help you fit in or not fit in to this New Zealand or this Australia or this place that you now call home? And what does that feel like? A sense of maybe straddling both worlds, neither this nor that in South Africa, neither this nor that in these new places, not quite fitting in, not quite belonging. I'm interested in how you see it now, because we also spread around the world. So this sense of who we are is now morphing and moving as we morph and move into different spaces.
1,000%. I love Oyal's perspectives, and I think there's so many different pieces to that what you guys have experienced and what you guys have said. I feel like I live in the residue of that. So I'm living in what the experiences that my parents, or the traumas that my parents have had, being grown up in South Africa, in the neighborhoods they grew up with, and any other generational baggage that they've carried, they've then placed on to me and my sister. And even though growing up in Perth, Western Australia, I feel like I've lived their experiences because they've spoken so much about it, because they've kind of projected what they've dealt with onto us as their children. So in some ways, I don't know if I have like a clean slate of this is my experience, or am I experiencing what that baggage that they've brought over? Like, am I living in that still? So for me, identity is something that I still myself am trying to grasp at my almost 40 years old, trying to understand like where I fit or how people perceive me. And like I said in the last episode, it's something that I still feel that I need to work on, because it not only is something that people can see that I'm like, okay, like we don't know who he is, but he also in himself too is like unsure of like where he's standing with his identity. And I think when I speak to like my even my grandmother, when I talk to her about race, and I talk to her about, you know, those expectations that she had as a colored child, she sort of lives in this construct, or this this sort of like a social context that needs to be like that. She still is like, it's just like ruminating in her mind, where she still hasn't broken from it herself, because she still says the things that are quite outlandish and quite outdated to what we are living in today. So that, when I think of that, I'm like, even a woman that's 90, almost 94 years old, has dealt with and still just lives in it, where she's just, it's a part of who she is, where she's just this racially ambiguous woman who is just identifying herself because that's how she's been told, and that's the construct that she's living in. So then it allows me to question myself, being like, okay, even if my ancestors can't figure it out, then how am I at 40 years old supposed to make sense of it all? But very quickly, though, I can tell you that me being a coloured South African in Perth, in a very white-dominated town, very backward country mentality type of town, I can say that which I spoke about before, I've had lots of racial slurs thrown at me, and I feel that I always say that mum and dad, like they, you know, coming to Australia, they wanted like that clean slate, they wanted that new life, and for them to now hear myself or my sister talk about race, or say, oh, we felt like this because this person said that, or this person insinuated that, for them, they're just like, they don't want to hear it because they had grown up with that. Now they don't want to come to another place where they're hearing such things like that. It's such a vicious cycle for them. It's just like too traumatic. So I feel like in some of those ways, I feel like I haven't been able to sort of have a platform to be able to be like, hey, this is how I feel about what people have said, what I grew up with. And it's kind of just like pushed under the rug. So maybe this also is one of the aspects that's also like been critical in my identity crisis that I have. But an aspect that I want to very quickly touch on is, I think, which I don't know because I haven't been to South Africa in a very long time, but I know of being an African Australian, or a person of African heritage that's living in the African diaspora, having that American influence, a Black American influence, is something that coloured youth outside of South Africa and in other places around the world, and other African nations, the youth that are from other countries like Kenya and even like Eritrea and Nigeria, having this sort of a like a culture that we've kind of grasped or like lent on, which would be the Black American culture, is allowed us to have sort of an identity to non-white people and have a camaraderie with each other. So we've been able to be like, okay, like a Black American slang, we can say stuff from learning how people speak on our devices, like from like TikToks and Instagram and TV shows. We're allowed to have these conversations within other Black nations and with Black Americans and also colored people about this genre, which is like a Black American culture, to be able to have an understanding with each other, or to have like a code language with each other that no one else understands. So that also then adds another layer into who we are, or who our identity, or how we identify ourselves. And that, I think, further complicates it for us, but also for people looking from the outside in, because people may look at me and be like, well, what you know about Black culture? What you know about anything of that, where you don't look like that? Or why are you talking so Black? Or why are you talking like this? And it's like, then it's a further it's that sort of conversation again of me trying to explain who I am, or why I talk like that, or why am I in groups of people who are like this. So there's complexities.
I think what's interesting here is all the South Africans that hang out. We all find each other, doesn't matter what we are, white, black, mixed, whatever. And there's a culture of trying to show everybody we are South African. So there's a celebration of all the days like you guys have. We have the prize, we have the all kinds of things to celebrate us being South African, and there's no sense of, oh, but you white and I'm colored and you black. So it's an interesting thing that has happened. In fact, one of my first clients that I had when I came here was they would come to the center that I worked in, and they would say, I'd like to have a South African psychologist because I'm struggling with being here and I'm missing home and I'm homesick. And then some of the white people would walk in and they would be like, on their faces, they would have that look of shock, like, South African psychologist, but they wouldn't say, oh, we were expecting a white psychologist. And it was always funny, and I would always have a giggle about this to myself. And then there was one lady that came, this was like in 2010, and she burst into tears in the second session. And she talked about feeling so depressed. And as we were talking, I recognized that her sense of that she just said to me in one of the sessions, she said to me, I'm sorry for what my people did to your people. And she was carrying guilt and shame from her ancestors, and she never knew how to work through it. And I said to her, on behalf of all black people, we forgive you. I forgive you. I don't know how that happened. And in the next session, when she came back, she was lighter. She was not carrying a heavy burden anymore. She was cured. And I thought, wow, how interesting that if we carry anger, if we carry bitterness, if we carry the unforgiveness, then we'll always be faced with, but who are we and when are we going to get this back and what about our people? But I think there's a sense of letting go and just being comfortable with the fact that I'm proud of who I am. And I can be mixed race and I don't have to choose. So I wear my hair very African because I don't want to go back to that aspect of you have to fix your hair up. You have to straighten your hair up so that you can look better. I'm past that stage and I want to celebrate being brown. So everyone asks me, so what are you? What are you? Because I look at my hair and then I say, why don't you guess? And my child has blonde curly hair and I'm saying to her, don't straighten your hair. celebrate your curls, celebrate, because we were told that our hair was wrong, that we had to fix our hair up, we have to use a chemical to straighten our hair. And now, because we look so different, we always get stopped and asked, so where are you guys from? So I think it's a good thing to celebrate the fact that we don't need to fit in. We are both and we are all of the above. And it's something to be proud of, that if we really accept and love ourselves, that we open up that sphere of saying we all different. It would be so boring if we all looked the same. A lot of the clients that I have now, they say to me, you are an indigenous person, so I want you to work with me because we are indigenous people. Even though you're not from here, you understand what we've been through because of where you come from. And so I think that's extremely important, because they don't see me as other. They see me as people of the land that have been displaced from the land. So when we introduce ourselves, they talk about their forefathers. And they don't only talk about those that are from here, but they go back to Scotland and England. And there's a sense of, there's no shame in terms of that too. So they actually talk about both and. And I think it's important for us to also go back to that, even if we don't know. And I think some of the sadness comes from, I'm saying, but I don't know great-grandfather, his father. I don't know exactly where we come from. So there's a part of me that wants to find out, but there's a part of me that will never know. So it's a good thing for us to celebrate all of the above. We don't have to fit in. And when I first came here, I was like that young girl that went to Wits for the first time. And I purposely didn't only hang out with my people. I purposely made friends with every creed and culture, because here we've got people from Asia, we've got Americans, we've got everybody under the sun. And I purposely chose not to just hang out, because I also saw that we can also live in a sense of fear, where we only have to be with our people and eat our food and celebrate being African and South African, and, always wanting to hang out with each other. And I said, no, I didn't come all this way just to be with my own people. Then what is the point? The point is to learn different people from all over the world, and to hang out with people from all over the world, and to learn from them, and to teach them about what we eat and what we say. And it's interesting and it's fascinating that I think it's fear that makes us only stick to our own kind and want to prove a point all the time, that we are better or different or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. We are all God's children, and we all want the same things. We all want to feel like we fit in. We all want to be loved. We all want to give love. We all want families. We all want to feel like we can make a difference. And I think it's important for us to teach our children that it doesn't matter where you come from. Be proud of where you come from. You don't have to fit in. And I think fitting in takes us away from actually being kind to ourselves, looking always at other people so where do I fit in? What do you think of me? What do you think of me? Do I fit in here? Do I fit in there? So it's always that turning and asking other people what they think of us. And I think we need to turn to ourselves and really genuinely love ourselves. And I think that will make a difference.
May I just read something? Do we have time, Ralph? Just a brief something?
Yeah, we're at an hour now. If you guys wanted to, I think that we could go for maybe another 5 minutes or so, if you guys are okay with that. Yeah, if you wanted to say what you would love to say, that would be amazing. If anybody has something that at the end they want to have like a little conclusion or something that they've got, or maybe Heidi, maybe what you're about to say is something that's great that can conclude this, that would be absolutely amazing. And then we're good to go.
Yeah, I think it might kind of conclude, and it's something I wrote about belonging, and it touches a bit on what you say now, Annie, and what you were saying just now, Ra, about this work of who we are is ongoing work. The lovely story about your grandma, that's ongoing work, and we never quite fully arrive, but that work of, it's internal work, I think, is what Annie was saying. And so this piece reminded me of that. It's called Belonging. I'm seeing a biokineticist for my knees. The left, a mishmash of scars and a full knee replacement. The good one, not so good now. After years of compensation, it's calling for some attention. The bio works with pain and how it rests in our bodies and minds. Locked in my knees are my white forefathers, plundering the meat of my black grandmother. Hunched in my back are generations of broken brown and black people, too afraid to stand. I discover sinews of contempt, long discarded bones, invisible muscles, reckoning with my past and present, figuring out how land, place, ancestry, identity come to live now in me. I'm surprised at how I can't do simple movements and others come easily, of how far back pain extends and where it lodges, how the unwriting of early scripts of who I ought to be is constant everyday work, how the unwriting of early scripts of who I ought to be is constant everyday work. I find release in the mountain pose, standing straight and tall, arms at my sides, hand open, chest out, neck and head tilted up and forward. I'm everything and nothing, not my past or my future, this or that identity. In those moments, I belong fully and finally to myself. Standing straight and tall, arms at my sides, hands open, chest out, neck and head tilted up and forward. I'm everything and nothing, not my past or my future, this or that identity. In those moments, I belong fully and finally to myself.
Sorry, I love
I
that.
love it.
Love that.
That's amazing.
Absolutely love it. Well
good.
done. It says it so beautifully.
Yeah.
And isn't it interesting that all of us have a little bit of a perspective here, different, but we come to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
That my identity and the responsibility for it rests with me.
Yeah.
And that if we continuously blaming other people
Yeah.
for what has happened in our past, grandma's past, great grandma's past, nothing changes. That the ownership for being the best you can be rests with you,
Yeah.
in spite of all of those things. And for me as a coach, that is what I would like to tell young people today that are struggling with who they are and where they go to next, is take your life in your hands
Yeah.
and make what you will of it. That's my 5 cents.
Nice, Crystal. Yeah, we're not victims, eh?
No, we're not.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you guys so much for being a part of this discussion. I think that it has been so eye-opening. Not only has, yes, again, being that you guys have had all these experiences and these professional backgrounds and being coloured women, I think that this offers such a fresh perspective to audience, even to myself, and seeing that you guys are being able to, you know, articulate those very things that you guys have been through. And I think that this is such an amazing conversation that we're having. I love that you, Heidi, the work that you've been doing with how you're expressing yourself through poem. And guys, you know what? I feel like it just speak like that conclusion, like that beautiful poem that you guys that you just have done. I think that has just summed up everything that we've been able to, you know, that we've chatted about today. We definitely need to have another one of these, even if it's on an individual basis too. We can also do a one-on-one if maybe either or whoever person wants to team up and have a little conversation like that, to do like a mini podcast would be absolutely great, because there's so many different aspects that we can all unpick and unpack, and talk about, because it's huge, it's so complex. But yeah, guys, thank you guys so much again, and yeah, we'll definitely
Nice to see you all.
Yeah, thanks for organising, Crystal and Ra, and lovely to meet you, Annie. Thank
Nice
you
to
all.
meet you again, Heidi. I think you forgot me.
I think I
Yes,
did. I think I did.
Yeah.
Sorry for forgetting you.
It's okay. It's okay.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Annie, you must
Thank you
wave.
so much, Annie. That was absolutely
Myra,
brilliant.
I'm
Bye
gonna greet
bye.
you in a Maori greeting.
Okay.
Yes, I,
Kite ano.
Thank you.
brilliant.
Thank you.
Okay,
So
who could say something that's very coloured South Africa? I want to hear something like that.
Okay, sharp, Mabel.
Sharp.
Laters.
Later.
Later.
Yes, where you come from.